What's happening, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode of Crossed Up. Anthony Sanfilippo is here. I am Bob Wankel, and we are ready to talk about the Major League leading Philadelphia Phillies, who just completed their sixth sweep of the season. They are 34-14. And as I wrote about yesterday after the game, and as I wrote about today in the newsletter, redoctoberphilly.com, a natural plug. You cannot talk about this current Phillies team without citing history. It's unbelievable. 48 games in, only the 1976 and 1993 Phillies are the only other two teams in franchise history to win this many games in this amount of time. And Anthony, if they win their next two games, the first two games against the Rangers, you were talking about the best 50-game start to a season this franchise has ever seen, dating all the way back to 1883.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, Bob. And not only that, currently, at 34-14, there's only been 21 teams in the history of baseball who've ever done better through 48 games. And of those 21 teams, 18 of them went to the World Series. So just kind of giving you the perspective of what a start like this means. And of those 21, 20 of them won their division. Only one team, the 1911 Detroit Tigers, actually got caught from behind. So just kind of give you perspective of what this really means historically for the Phillies. It's unfathomable. It's unbelievable. Like, I don't even know how to respond on this show anymore. Like, it's one thing, and I'm serious about that because we don't ever want to sound like we're too fanish, and we don't want to be too critical.
Hey, you don't want to slobber all over them. Somebody on YouTube, our last show, I guess somebody that listens to us all the time, because they tied it into something I refer to, or someone I refer to all the time, Michael Barkan. Yeah. They said, look at Bob going all Barkan on today's show. And I'm like, whoa. Like, I put the disclaimer out there. I'm like, look, man, like, this is about winning a championship. Like, the Phillies are good. I love to come on here and tell everybody how good the Phillies are. They are. I can't do it every single show for an hour, every single show, though. Like, you got to poke some holes in the product a little bit.
Yeah.
And damn it, I will today. I promise you. But look, I mean, there's just so many different things you can say about this team. They haven't lost consecutive games since April 23rd and April 24th. They haven't lost a series since the second series of the season on April 3rd, when they lost 2 out of 3 to Cincinnati at home. Like, it's crazy. I believe they played 14 straight series, and they're 10-0-4 in those last 14 series, and 6 of them have been sweeps. They're on pace to win 115 games, man. They're on pace to win 115 games. They're playing 708 baseball. A National League team has not won that many games since the 1906 Cubs won 116 games. A Major League team hasn't done it since the 2001 Mariners won 116 games.
Which, by the way, is the Major League record, 116 wins in the season.
It's absolutely insane what this team is doing right now. And, like, go ahead, look. The Rangers coming in, they're basically a 500 team. They're a good test. Like, they won the World Series last year. Do we get to count this on tough opponents? Like, or are we discounting what the Rangers are doing because they're not red hot? Like, and then look at that schedule that they have coming up. Like, it's just more teams that they should be able to go by and steamroll. And I would always say cautiously, like, look, the Rockies have actually played some better baseball lately. Mm-hmm. And, it's hard to win out there. And you never can expect to win series on the road, series after series. This team right now, the way these guys are going, they're going to sweep the Rockies, right? Like, they're just going to blitz their way to 100-plus wins and enjoy the party.
And, well, it's interesting, and I was thinking about that too. I'm like, I was looking at the schedule and saying, I'm looking for, and this, I'm not trying to be negative, but I'm looking for pitfalls, like little spots that maybe you could have a little trip up and get off of this 700 winning percentage pace, right? And, I thought about the Colorado, and I'm like, no, it ain't going to happen. They're going to beat the Rockies. But San Francisco, who they swept in a 4-game series here, and who's not a very good team, has always been a house of horrors for this Phillies team, right? When they go out to Pac Bell, or whatever the hell it's called, AT&T Stadium now. And I think that, you look at that and say, okay, well, maybe that's where you have a little trip up. Maybe they lose 2 out of those 3 just because of, his history. But there's part of me that thinks that this team wants to eradicate every demon that exists for them for the past 2 years or however long it's been, and they're going to go out there and they're just going to eviscerate the Giants. Like part of me feels that way too. So it's really kind of an interesting thing on how you want to put this team into a historical perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now, I look at what we've done recently. 4 games with the Mets. The Mets aren't great, but it'll be tough games. They'll probably split. I said that they were going to split with the Giants. I probably thought that they were going to win 2 out of 3 games this past weekend.
Yep.
It's not realistic to expect a team to win at this pace, and they just keep rolling. And even in games where it doesn't look like they're going to, they find a way. I mean, they had no business winning that game Saturday night. Cody Clemens down to your final out, 413 feet out to right center on a bullet. I mean, that thing was a wall scraper. It was a rocket, pun intended. Dad, shout out to Dad. Dude, man, this team is out of control. And even yesterday, you're watching it and you're like, oh man, Harper probably a little over aggressive, going to his right on a ball in the hole, bad flip, error, 2-run homer. You blink, now they're down 3-2 in the 5th. Other years, I would have told you that's just a game you lose. That's the way baseball works. They just didn't have it. Nola wasn't that sharp, whatever. Well, guess what? I mean, Aaron Nola gave up 2 hits in over 7 innings yesterday. He calmed down after the 2 homers in the middle innings. And then the Phillies just said, okay, no problem. We're going to score 11 runs. The game was over by the 6th inning.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like a hang on for dear life and eke it out. It was just the game was over literally an inning later. They are winning, and they are winning with authority. I mean, they are literally just kicking everybody's ass right now.
And it's different, and it's different ways too. Like they're imposing their will like they did yesterday. They're coming from behind like they did Saturday. They're getting contributions throughout the lineup, throughout the roster, whether it's a great start from a pitcher or, they're putting runs up in the early innings with their stars, or guys coming off the bench or we haven't even talked on, I don't know how we've missed it. We haven't talked about the contributions of Edmundo Sosa, who has filled in brilliantly for the most part, at shortstop since Trey Turner got hurt. Like, there are guys who are just doing things at every turn for this Phillies team. It's unbelievable. It's fun to watch. And I'll tell you, Bob, some of the funny stuff is now I was down there Friday and Saturday, and you went down yesterday, but I went down Saturday. Pregame, we're in Rob Thompson's office, and we're like, we don't even know what to ask you because the team's going so well. We don't even know what to ask at this point. It was really kind of funny, and there was some jokey stuff that was brought up in that meeting.
Post game yesterday, you feel yourself kind of in that mode. You're like, as a reporter, you don't want to go in there and be like, hey, Rob, what's the secret sauce to your success? But at this point, you're sitting there looking at it and you're like, you guys are 20 games over 500 right now. It took you 158 games to be 20 games over 500 last season. It was their high watermark. They never got beyond it. And it's like, how do you stay humble? How do you stay focused? And what did he say? He didn't talk about our math has changed, our expectations have changed. It's get to 25 games over 500. It's like just blocking it out, attainable short-term goals to try to reach. And that's where they're heading. And that's what they're thinking about as they sort of roll through this season. I guess let's start by doing this. Let's talk about the man of the moment, Cody Clemens. He spoke to reporters after yesterday's game. We're down there talking to him.
Before we get to the man of the moment, just to let everybody know, because we haven't said it yet, later in this podcast, we had an opportunity to sit down with Phillies reliever Jeff Hoffman for a great interview, so you guys, hang in there. We'll get to the Jeff Hoffman interview, but we wanted to recap, this weekend first before we got to that. So anyway, back to you, Bob.
All amped up, it probably should have been the first thing I said. We might have to go back and do an edit. Let's get that back in the first minute. We have a guy give us 25 minutes. He was great. It's a good interview. Really excited for that. Should have led with that. Damn it. Look. But let's get it back to Cody Clemens. Cody Clemens, man, what are we doing here? 29 at bats, 1.166 OPS. He's hitting 321. Basically saves the day Saturday night. Has the key hit Sunday with the double, pair of doubles. He's the one he gives him the go ahead though in the 5th inning, makes it 5-3. I mean, it's just another good story in what's been a good team and a year filled with them, right? I'm going to turn this not negative. I know we always talk positive, negative, but like we could sit here and we could slobber all over Cody Clemens, and we should. What does this mean moving forward, though? Like, are we now at a point where you saw him come up when Bryce Harper went on paternity leave and he made an impact, and then they sent him back down? Here he is again now with Trey Turner out. Are they going to send him back down? Because just to give a little context here, I think everyone agrees. I think the Phillies agree. I think Rob Thompson agrees. Cody Clemens is a Major League Baseball player. So how are they going to handle this?
Yeah, it's a tough question. And, I know I asked you, and you put it in your story, and I asked you, where does Whit Merrifield fit right now? Cody Clemens plays the same positions. He gives them an alternative that's a left-handed bat off the bench that they don't have. And the reason that he made the team, or he didn't make the team out of spring training, was Rob Thompson said they were comfortable with Whit Merrifield batting against right-handed pitching. Well, Whit Merrifield has not done well so far. And so I asked you, I says, is it possible that he's, on his way to being Josh Harrison here, kind of, and being a veteran guy that they brought in and just didn't work out, and you keep Cody Clemens? I'm not convinced that's the case. I really think that the Phillies aren't going to get off of that contract. You gave him $8 million. You're not just going to walk away from $8 million, right? So, and then so the next question is, well, is Christian Pache repetitive if you're going to play Johan Rojas? And the answer to that is yes, he is repetitive, but the Phillies don't have complete confidence in Rojas as an everyday center fielder. And secondarily, they need somebody to play in left field against left-handed pitching when Brandon Marsh doesn't play and Cody Clemens is not, he's left-handed. So you're not upgrading that, or you're not changing the look, at least there. So I don't think Christian Pache goes out, in which case, yeah, maybe Cody Clemens goes back to the minor leagues, and I'm sure people will go nuts about it, but that might be the move, at least temporarily, that the Phillies, have to pull.
Yeah, Cody Clemens has options. He's the one guy that they can send down, and they still control and keep all three. And so in that way, he's sort of the odd man out. Now, I think when you take the long view, you understand that the roster flexibility and the overall ability to control all three players moving forward is important to them. I guess there's also the idea that it will work itself out. There will come a time where the Phillies will optimize and they will ultimately carry the best players. But do you make that decision on, let's say Trey Turner is now, I don't know, what do you think the target date for Trey Turner is at this point?
I think I think that's the target. They won't say it. I tried to get Rob to say it because he was talking about how Turner taking batting practice and for the first time, and he's been taking fielding, and that the next steps are base running and sliding, but they got to be real careful with him. And I said to him, but he's doing really good. And I said, so is he ahead of schedule? And the response was, well, there is no schedule. I tried to get him to say it. But I do think that, even though they said, 6 weeks, I think London is now the target to get him back.
So a lot can happen between now and then. Cody Clemens could go over his next 13, and we're like, well, what are we really talking about here? This decision does not need to be made today. And fortunately for the Phillies, although you would welcome back Trey Turner immediately if you could, they don't have to make this decision. There is time to kind of gather more evidence. I would also say, look, let's talk about Whit Merrifield, because like if we're going to be honest here, like it hasn't been good. He's hitting 188 this season. And as I wrote in my story after the game yesterday, it's not just that he hasn't been good or that he's had two prolonged slumps in a very short amount of time. It's that he's not making hard contact. It's not like he is a victim of poor luck. So he's had 85 at bats this season. In an 85 at bat sample, you could be robbed of a few base hits here and there. A couple hard hit balls don't land. And you say 188 could look like 230. And maybe there's a couple extra base hits there. So an OPS in the mid to upper 500s might be more in the mid 600s. And it doesn't look quite as ugly in that sample of at bats. However, of anybody that has 70 plate appearances or more this season, Whit Merrifield has the lowest or the worst hard hit percentage, 13%. Nobody worse. In terms of players that have put at least 70 balls in play, he is tied for the lowest average exit velocity Like, he's just not hitting the ball hard or with any type of consistent authority. So do the Phillies consider this like as another Josh Harrison situation? Or do you think that I think you said it. The contract is one thing. It's an $8 million deal. Do you seriously move off of a player after 85 lackluster at bats after you give him $8 million? A guy who still is versatile. He's a pro. He's experienced. There's the whole, he checked in with Bryce Harper thing. Like, there's a lot going on here from even I think like clubhouse considerations and dynamics. I just don't know how you navigate this, because right now I think anybody that's watched this play out would say that Cody Clemens probably gives you more value than both Christian Pache and Whit Merrifield. I kind of read the situation much like you do with both players, though.
Yeah, I think that's really I think you just outlined it properly, Bob. I mean, it's a tough spot for the Phillies to look at it and say, well, geez, if Whit Merrifield can just give them a little bit more, show them a little bit more, I mean, okay, and yeah, obviously you're gonna keep him. And yeah, 85 plate appearances at $8 million. Do the math. Like, that's not enough for an $8 million player, right? I mean, like, to make a determination that you want to move on from him, that it was a mistake. He needs to be better. There's no doubt about it. And fans will probably lose their mind if Cody Clemens is sent down to keep Merrifield and Pache. But the reality of it is that options are important for a team, because you don't go through a season with just 26 players, right? You need the options in order to have some flexibility with your 40-man roster. And Cody Clemens has options, so therefore he's the one that can go down. Just like in the bullpen, we talked about on Saturday, we were talking with Rob. I was telling you that one of the things that did come up in that pregame meeting was Junior Marte. He's rehabbing, right? And he had a shoulder thing, and he's throwing and he's looking good, whatever, and that's great. He's probably going to need a rehab stint, which is fine. But he let slip, after that, we'll have to figure out where we're going to send him or what we're going to do in the bullpen. And the reality of it is, Jose Ruiz has pitched well since he's been here. He does not have an option. Junior Marte has an option. So maybe Junior Marte is a guy that you get sent down. Again, the options are important. You're going to need these players as the year progresses. And then you can add 2 guys in September. That's all well and good. But you're going to need these players. And having this depth is an important part of why the Phillies are 34-14. So you can't get mad at them if they option somebody to keep someone on a roster who they can't just get rid of without losing them, right? I mean, so I think that's how you have to view it. And in that regard, the Phillies will probably do the right thing by their players in that the way that's set up.
Well, much like the roster story of the first 7-8 weeks of the season, the Taijuan Walker, Spencer Turnbull situation, this is yet another instance where it's a good problem to have in a way, right? Like, this is something where we're talking about useful players. There's value to each guy. There's a reason to keep each guy. The Phillies are in a very advantageous situation when it comes to how they're going to navigate this upon Trey Turner's return. Oh, yeah. You know what, Anthony? Listen, I got to tell you, I'm all in on Cody Clemens. I just want to put a little bow on that. I'm all in. I think that he's the guy. I think that he should be starting at second base. I think the Phillies should look to leverage Trey Turner in a future trade. They're winning a ton of games without him. Move Stoddard over to shortstop, free up some salary, and let's go get it. Now, listen, Cody Clemens is a really good story, but I do think that we need to see more. And I think that, time here in the next few weeks will give us more information about what the Phillies can and should do when the time comes to make that decision.
Yeah, no, you're right, Bob. There's not much more we could talk about on that front, but there is one thing I wanted to kind of get to today.
Okay.
Aaron Nola says this is the best rotation he's ever pitched in. It's not a surprise, I would say. I mean, but at the same time, it's kind of bold, to kind of throw that out there, especially with
I just don't know how you could slight legends like Jake Arrieta, Nick Pivetta, Vince Velasquez, any rotation that has those names in it. It's hard to say that the one you're in right now is the best.
It's funny. It's funny you say that, though, because Nola, I had a conversation with him, I don't know, about a month ago, where he said he credited Jake Arrieta with a lot of things that go into how he trains and gets ready to pitch game in and game out. He said he learned a lot from Jake Arrieta. So I was kind of surprised by that because his tenure here was not a memorable one
It
by
was
any
not
stretch
the
of the
best.
imagination.
No, it was not the best tenure.
But I thought that's
Well,
interesting
look,
you mentioned it.
my reaction to this is, yeah, he probably is right. I mean, look, they right now, I wrote this in the story in Crossing Broad after Sunday's game. Ranger Suarez is second best ERA amongst all National League starting pitchers. Zach Wheeler is 7th. Aaron Nola is now 14th after play yesterday. And Chris Sanchez is 19th. Spencer Turnbull, they don't break his rhythm. He makes a few more starts. They might have all 5 guys in the top 20 of National League starters. I would venture to say that there's not too many rotations that have ever done that through, 48 games or whatever it's been. So certainly the numbers would back up that claim. And I think the question is, when we look at this, it's always about that 2011 rotation, right? Like what they were able to do in 2011 and how they were able to stack all of those aces. Like as the season progresses, is it possible that this rotation outperforms that rotation? And I think that that's sort of like the real question here. It's a no-brainer that this is the best rotation Noel's been part of.
Yes.
Other than maybe this American Legion team in Louisiana. You know what I mean? Like,
no, 1,000%. Yeah, it's an interesting thought bubble there, because when you look at it, I mean, obviously, I think the talent was probably greater. There was a greater talent track record of that 2011 team when you look at where Halladay was in his career and Lee was in his career. Hamels already had established himself, and Oswald. I mean, those guys were all pretty well established. And here you got Wheeler and Nola as your established guys. And Suarez is now finally coming into his own. And then the back end, Sanchez is having a breakout a little bit, and then the Turnbull and then Taiwan at the back end. So maybe that's what you still put 2011 ahead of them. Again, they did it for a whole season. These guys have done it for 48 games. But I do think it's a worthy conversation that if you're breaking it down for one season and one season only, does this rotation have a chance to be the best the city has ever seen? And the answer to that might be yes.
well, we kept talking about how they had the National League's best ERA as a starting staff. Well, now it's Major League Baseball. They've passed the Red Sox now. They stand alone. They are number 1 in the sport as we have this conversation in starting pitching ERA. I mean, they have just been so good. There's a couple other things I want to hit on before we get to the Jeff Hoffman interview here.
Yeah, and one thing before you get to it, just to kind of put a bow, and this includes all pitchers, not just the starting pitchers, but considering the bullpen has been a little bit weaker statistically than the starters, this is an even more incredible number. The Phillies have the best fielding independent pitching of all teams in baseball at 3.29 of all. Like, no one else. The next closest team is Detroit at 3.46.
Wow.
So even that's a pretty impressive number for the entire staff, let alone the starters.
Damn impressive. You're right about that. Couple quick things I want to get to. We're talking about pitching, so let me just quickly get to this. I'm not trying to sound like Michael Barkan. Have the Phillies kind of broken the magic on Spencer Turnbull? What are we seeing here right now?
I mean, they've put him in a tough spot, right, Bob? I mean,
totally agree with that.
Like, he's coming into games as a reliever, which he's never done. Sometimes it's 1 inning, sometimes it's 2 innings, sometimes it's 3 innings. Usually it's low leverage. I mean, he hasn't really been put into a spot where he's being asked to perform. Like, I think that they've really kind of
the adrenaline quite the same as it was when you're getting the ball every 5th day. I just, you see him come in here and he's not as sharp, and I think it's to be completely expected. I'm typically like hey, do your job guy. You got to perform in whatever role you're given, figure it out. I'm not really pinning this on the player, especially right now. Now, we get 3 or 4 weeks down the line, and this is sort of what the role is, even if it's an unsteady one or it's an inconsistent one. You have to ask the player to perform at some point. But I just kind of view this as a little bit of a transition phase for the guy. And I don't know how much you can pin on him if he's not entirely sharp or not completely effective as he's coming in these appearances.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think it's a tough spot. And what are you going to do? I mean, again, it's a good problem to have.
It's a good problem to have, but what I do worry about is that there's a world where you then rely on him again, right? Where
Yeah.
it's not a luxury item.
Well,
It's not excess. And then what happens if he's not the guy? And I'm not saying he's going to be the guy that he was at the start of the season. He's not, guys. Guess what? Spencer Turnbull was not going to do that for 32 starts this season. He just wasn't. No offense to him. I think he's nice arm. He's interesting. His ball moves. It's good. But like there was going to be regression. We know that.
Yeah,
but,
and here's where I look at it with some criticism. And I agree with what you just said. But you kind of know what Taijuan Walker is. Like, what he is. You saw it for an entire year last year. He's been your guy. You kind of know what you're getting out of him. Why take a guy away that was performing better than what Taijuan Walker is? This isn't a knock on Taijuan Walker as much as it is, you had a guy who was rolling. Why not just let it go until it fizzles, until it starts to fade? And then you can go back to Taijuan Walker, as opposed to doing this, where now, if you need to improve on what Walker gives you over the course of the next couple of months and you can't, then you're relying on Turnbull to come back and say, okay, now go back and do what you were doing before. And how can you expect that to happen at that point? Like I think they should have rode it out as opposed to doing what they did. And that could put them in a spot come July when you're at the trade deadline and go, okay, now we got to go out and get another arm. Like, why did you put yourself in that position?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I want to go back to a couple positive things, and then we'll wrap it up, and we'll go to the Jeff Hoffman interview. Just real quick, Alec Boehm, 5 runs batted in yesterday. Pair of sac flies, 3-run homer. He's up to 42 now. He's on pace to drive in 142 runs. It's most since any Philly. I think it was Ryan Howard, 146 in 2008. Ryan Howard hit more than 45 home runs that season to do it. Alec Boehm's on pace to hit 17 home runs, and he could knock in 142 runs. I would love to have done a deeper dive. I didn't have time to do it. Is that even possible? Like, can a player knock in 142 runs in 2024 with 17 homers?
The one thing I can tell you is, and I don't remember what year it was, but I do remember that back in the days, we talked about the running Redbirds before, right? In the 80s. Yeah. If I remember correctly, there was one year where Tom Herr drove in 100 runs, but didn't even hit 10 homers.
Really? Okay, good.
So I know that, it's possible to get to 100 without being a home run guy, right? But can you get to 146 with just 17 home runs? That's a lot to ask. But
yeah, Tom Herr in 1985 drove in 110 runs with 8 homers.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. There you go. So I don't know about 146, but you can get to 100 for sure.
It's been amazing to watch Alec Boehm. I mean, he cooled down a little bit, I guess, but he just keeps on doing it. He's getting a lot of opportunities. There's guys at the top of the lineup are setting the table for him. He's getting chances, and he's been so productive and just so good with guys on base. I know a few weeks ago we read the runners in scoring position numbers and how he is in certain counts, and he can hit with 2 strikes, and he's almost automatic with guys on third and less than 2 out, like the whole deal, right?
Yeah.
But man, like he has just been so damn good. I mean, these numbers are just staggering. To see the run production that he's been able to generate for this team has been just off the charts good. And then the other homegrown guy that we talked about last time was Bryson Stott. And I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about Bryson Stott because we sung his praises last time we talked, but he just still keeps on going here. He's reached base now 18 straight games. That's a career best. You start to look at his numbers now, and you see them and you say, wow, these are pretty good. The on-base percentage is great. Batting average is really starting to climb. The OPS is strong in the mid-800s. Great. So today, for the first time, I've started to look at Bryson Stott in relation to other second basemen, because I see good numbers, but I don't see like all-star numbers. I don't see like, does he stack up with the game's best? And he's not quite there yet, but he's knocking on the door now. So I would ask you this: is there a world where Bryson Stott actually is an all-star as soon as 2024? And if not, and I give you another 2-year runway, and say by 2026, does Bryson Stott make an all-star team? Are you in or out on that?
I'm in. I'm not sure it's this year, but I think it could be as soon as next year. And I think that the only reason it might not be this year, it certainly still could be. I mean, he would have to maintain this pace that he's on, right, for people to notice. But I think it was just because he got off to a little bit of a slow start that probably hurt his chances. A lot of times guys get that all-star nod the year after they had a great year, right? Just because it's like, oh yeah, God, you remember how well he was hitting? And it's like, yeah, it's more like you're an
if your team wins 115 games and
yeah,
gets a ring at the end of it. So
right. It changes the calculus a little bit.
393 on base percentage, second among all qualified and not MLB second baseman. So it's crazy, man.
Yeah, it is crazy. So, by the way, just wanted to circle back while you were asking that Bryson Stott question. I did a little stat head search. No one has ever finished with 146 RBIs in the modern era. So there were 7 guys who did it pre-1900, but no one in the modern era has ever had 146 RBIs and fewer than 20 home runs.
Amazing. Good to know. I'll let you tweet that one out. That can be a Sanfilippo stat. That doesn't have to be a Bob Wankel special. There's a collaboration to get there, but hey.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to find one of like the most RBIs in like modern times, like even like the last 50 years, with under 20 home runs. And I'm having a hard time getting to that number. It actually might end up being Tom Herr. Everything's in like the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. I'm scrolling, and I can't find it. Here it is. Pedro Guerrero, 1989, had 117 RBI with 17 home runs.
There you go.
There you
go. And the more you know. The like the star on the NBC commercial back in the day. I don't know if they still do that. Yeah. All right, look, I want to turn the page to this Jeff Hoffman interview, and I want to get out ahead of this. Number one, thanks to the Phillies for setting it up. Thanks to Jeff Hoffman for doing it. He was very generous with his time. We talked to him on Friday afternoon before the start of the National Series. He was awesome. Really cool guy. It was a good opportunity to have a chat with him, and I would just apologize to the listeners in advance. I got so into Anthony, the run up to his time with the Phillies and his process and the journey to get here, that we hardly even touched on all the shit that he's accomplished since he's been here.
Yeah.
So, just a little disclaimer out there for you. You tried to clean it up at the end there. Like, all right, let me quick hit them so the people get some cool insights to maybe the more right now stuff.
But I thought, I thought that the guy was great. And I think there's some great clips from this that people will enjoy. He's really open and honest and just a good dude to talk to. So I hope everybody enjoys this interview.
All right, we're here with Phillies relief pitcher Jeff Hoffman. Thanks for coming in and doing this. We know you got a lot to do, and you got treatment coming up here. Just heard, so thanks for taking some time out.
Yeah, absolutely. I love doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah, this is fantastic. We wanted to kind of learn a little bit more about you and your past and how you ended up here and all that good stuff. Kind of give the fans a real taste of who Jeff Hoffman is, because this has been a great run for you so far. We don't want to jinx anything. It's been a really good run for you so far. But can you just give us a little bit about your background? Where your baseball background, even where you grew up and started playing in the college in East Carolina.
Yep. Grew up in upstate New York, town called Latham. It's a little bit outside of Albany, the capital. So basically played baseball, T-ball all the way up through high school. I went to Shaker High School, undrafted out of high school. Got some recognition on the summer ball circuit out of high school, but I had already committed to East Carolina at that time. So honored that and went to East Carolina, did the 3-year thing there, and drafted by Toronto 2014, and then traded shortly after that to Colorado. And I spent, 6 or 7 years there from 2015, and COVID 2020 was my last year there, and then traded in 21 to Cincinnati. Cincinnati non-tendered me at the end of 22.
Yeah.
And then minor league deal, Minnesota, spring training 23, and then opted out and signed with the Phillies.
That's a heck of a journey.
It was, it's a lot to say. It's I was like, man, it's getting long. I want Philly to be my last stop.
Yeah,
so.
well, that's what
I kind of like to get into the weeds on this stuff a little bit. So, like, obviously, you're doing a little bit of background research on you and stuff. And like, what was the path from high school to even ECU? Because, like, the way I read it, it was like, hey, dominant statistics, throwing low 80s. Like, so I was a varsity baseball coach for 10 years. So I like have a lot of familiarity at that level. A lot of guys that are really productive but don't have big numbers in terms of velo and stuff. Yeah. Was that limiting, or did I kind of misread it and you jumped knowing like, yeah, I'm going to end up at this place?
So I was a late bloomer. I didn't really grow. I mean, I remember, like my sophomore year, I was still like 5'9" or so. Going into that basketball season, I kind of started to shoot up pretty quick. So my velo kind of naturally crept up with that. So I did the whole like the showcase type circuit where I travel with the same team and we would go to like Baseball Heaven in Long Island, and then a couple different places where there's like known to be like some scouting presence for the college level. And I actually ended up verbally committing to Elon, and I was going to go to Elon, and then my grades weren't good enough to get into Elon, and they didn't want to, pull the strings or whatever that it took. So Elon referred me to a few other schools, and East Carolina was one of them. Coastal Carolina was one of them. NC State was one of them. And I ended up thinking that East Carolina was the best financial package for me and best situation for me to go in and play right away.
When you got to ECU, like obviously from a statistical standpoint, you had a lot of success and gradually became even more successful. At some point along the way, was it your sophomore year, early junior year, where you're like, hey, I'm going to get drafted? Like, I mean, I know you were a top prospect coming out. Yep. Like, people were looking at you, maybe even top pick of the draft, right? Like, when did it kind of become obvious to you, like, whoa, like, this isn't just a D1 thing. This is, there's more to this.
So my freshman fall, guys are getting their places in summer leagues for that upcoming summer after the college season. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I don't know. Playing the New England College Baseball League. I don't really care, wherever. And the head coach, Billy Godwin at the time, called me one night. I was in my dorm. I'll never forget it. He's like, hey, how'd you like to go play in the Cape this summer? And I was like, this guy literally hasn't even really seen me throw. Like, he signed me off a recommendation.
Yeah.
And then, I did my freshman fall workouts where I was like the skinniest kid there, couldn't even lift a 60-pound dumbbell, did throwing, competed on the mound, did, what I had to do on the mound. But he was like, how would you like to go play in the Cape? I was like, I would love to. It's close to home, that kind of thing. It was a great situation. Obviously, it's the best. It's the best to be unless you're going to play Team USA. So I was really, that was the first point where I was like, I got out to the Cape and I was like, well, this is how good I have to be to get myself to the next level, that kind of thing.
Who else was there with you at the Cape?
My freshman year, I was there 2 years. Okay. My freshman year, I was there with Sean Mania, Schwarber, a bunch. There were a lot of guys, a lot of guys there. I don't know. Off the top of my head, I'm not the best with names, but no, there were, I was competing night in, night out. I think CJ Crone was there. Okay. The Falmouth team, I remember, were like boppers. Like, I remember pitching it. That was like the one game where I gave it up. I was like, this lineup just does not stop. Just like barrels and barrels and barrels. It's like, well, these guys aren't missing anything. And that was like part of that recognition of like, oh, this is different from just like college baseball.
Yeah. What's your thought process then when you get the call from Orlando? What are you thinking at that point? Like, holy cow, man.
Well, my elbow was blown out at that time.
Yeah.
I blew out like a month before the draft. We didn't really know what that meant for everything. We knew that I still had done enough in the college season to like hopefully stay in the first round, which was like my goal. Like, that was, an 18-year-old kid's goal, like stupid goal. But instead of being like, I want to end up in the right organization, blah, blah, blah. No, I wanted to be a first round. I wanted to be a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
And luckily, Toronto was like the one team where I was like, all right, these guys have 2 picks, like almost back to back. Maybe they'll take a chance on me, you know? So hopefully I did enough. And they did. And it was like the biggest weight off my shoulders ever, because like there was so much uncertainty to that point. I was literally still in a brace, like when my name got called. So yeah, it was awesome. And the fact that they're kind of close to home too was like awesome. And I grew up a Red Sox fan. I grew up watching all AL East stuff. Right. You can't really get away from it in that area of New York. So yeah, it was awesome when they picked me.
So then you get traded for, is it Troy Tulowitzki and LaTroy Hawkins? Like, what's that like? You know, you're in a deal for the first time. You're like, all right, these guys took a chance on me.
Yeah.
Obviously, someone else thinks highly enough of me to do this deal. I'm a center part of it.
Mm-hmm.
What was that experience like? And then, like, I know you obviously had some up and downs, and because we want to get the Philly stuff and obviously what's going on right now. But obviously you had some ups and downs in Colorado. I know you were literally up and down at times. Just can you kind of go through the journey? Because I think it's interesting. Like, people turn on TV, right? And they say, here's Jeff Hoffman. This guy's ripping 99. He's breaking off these sliders. This guy's nasty. And I don't think that the average fan really understands like the turbulence to even get to that level. Yeah. So I really like to dive into that stuff a little bit.
Yeah, and it's different. It's different for everybody, right? Like, there are guys that go up and they never see the minors again, unless it's on like a rehab or something. But yeah, for me, it was a lot of when I got traded, first of all, it was like on the deadline day, and I woke up that next day. I was starting that next day in AA in New Hampshire. So I woke up to like my phone completely blown up, and I was calling, just trying to figure out what the heck was going on. Called my agent, and he's like, yeah. Like, I went to bed that night, and my agent was like, yeah, you're not going anywhere. You're good. And I woke up and I was like, what happened, man? Like, thought I was good. No, but yeah, so getting over to Colorado, I just I don't think I was really ever working on the right things. I was so everybody kind of is so focused on like, all right, how do I combat this high altitude? Like, how do we like make ourselves good enough that we can win and we can get to the playoffs while this is like happening at our home field. So I think there was a lot of like tinkering and stuff on like pitches that at the end of the day never really mattered. There was a lot of mechanical stuff that at the end of the day, the health that I've had from the time that I left Cincinnati to now, which is only 2 years, but I can tell you, from being me and knowing how my body feels, I'm more healthy now than I ever have been in my whole career, because I had these mechanical adjustments being, thrown at me, and I'm a coachable guy. I, try to, take everything and figure out what's best for myself or whatever. I just think I put myself in some really restricted patterns, and shoulder issues popped up, and, all of a sudden my back and like my upper back was starting to like get messy, and there was always work to be done on like my upper back, and I could never figure out what was going on. Well, in reality, I get here and it's like, no, the philosophy is just to like be you and do what you do within yourself, but like just move how you see it in your head, like move how you want to move and move how your body just wants to move and that kind of thing. And then from that point on, it's like, man, I'm just out there slinging it. Like last night I threw 30 pitches, feel like I can go out there tonight again. That was never the case in any of those other previous stops. So it's different from place to place, and the training staff here is really, really good. And
so you go to Cincy, right?
Yep.
And you're there 2 years?
Yep.
You're unrestricted free agent at the end of that, going into 23?
No.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. Unrestricted free. I was non-tendered.
Non-tendered.
Yeah,
okay,
so I was a free agent.
Okay, you're free agent. Okay,
yeah.
So you're a free agent going into 23. Twins,
yeah.
Right? Call first. Is that correct?
Not necessarily first. We actually waited a while.
So yeah, like, just about that process, because it's like this was only this is less than 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I read you held kind of a tryout for some teams.
Mm-hmm.
You had worked on stuff I think your average fastball velocity in 22 was like 94.
Yeah, as a starter.
And then you hold this tryout and you're throwing 90. I knew you averaged 97 last year. Like,
Yeah.
what was the process to even like land in Philly? Because it wasn't just I left Cincy, here I am.
Right.
I mean, there were multiple things going on.
Yeah, so Philly was a team that was at that workout. They actually sent an old college teammate of mine as their scout, which I didn't know if that was like on purpose or not. But shout out Bryce Harmon. He showed up and I was like, the heck? I thought he worked for the Yankees. He used to work for the Yankees. Now he works for the Phillies. I was like, we already had a Yankees guy here. I didn't know what was going on. But anyways, so basically I signed late in Minnesota. So I showed up and like that day they were basically like, hey, can you throw live? And I was like, yeah, ready to go. Like came in ready to go because I knew I was signing late, all that stuff. So the reason we waited so long is because we were holding out for hopefully a major league opportunity, because in 22 I had a really good first half and then didn't come out of the half very good because my shoulder was barking. So IL, injections, all this stuff, eventually ended up missing basically the rest of the year. I missed the rest of the year. Right. Where are we going with that? We were going to, sorry.
So you got the Minnesota.
So, don't make Minnesota. Opted out. Phillies were the first team to call. They're like, hey, listen, we've scouted you all spring. Love what we see. We like that you've done X, Y, and Z to change yourself, to mix it up. And like, they were on board with all that stuff. And I was like, oh, wow, that's all stuff that I was working on this offseason to like get me to that next level. And I was like, yeah, this is great. Like they're citing everything that I would hope a team would, for that reason. So it was a good fit from that point. And I knew Caleb a little bit just from I wasn't with him in Cincinnati, but the head guy in Cincinnati is very much alike with Caleb, and they work together and all that kind of stuff. They're all Vandy people, so they seem to know what they're doing a little bit.
Yeah. So you get here, and obviously it was only a month, right? And AAA was not a great experience for you, like numbers wise. But I mean, I think we discussed this before, where you said it was maybe the numbers were a little bit misleading, but you were still feeling good. But then you end up the Bryce Harper story, which I think is the great story for you, is that you're asked to come throw BP for Bryce Harper. So how does that happen? A, and then B, I know you've said before you looked at that as this is my audition to get up to the major leagues, because you were going to opt out and see what next could happen. Can you kind of take us through that and what you were thinking during that whole thing?
Yeah. So the way it happened was I was pitching in a game in Lehigh, and inning was kind of messy. Ended up being bases loaded with 2 outs or something. Yeah, I think it was bases loaded with 2 outs, and they came out and got me, and it was like, whoa. What's going on here? Like, you're not going to let me get this last guy and like save my runs. So they yanked me. Like, I was like, well, that was a tough little situation there. I might have to say something. So after I got into the dugout, Contreras, our manager, was like, hey, come and talk to me after the game in the office. Like, it's about all that. I was like, oh, great. Cool. They know it was crazy. I don't have to tell them that was crazy. So anyways, so I get, into his office, and they were like, all right, so never really seen this before, but they wanted us to yank you because of pitch count, because they wanted to offer you this, a few days from now. And then I was like, okay, great. What is it? They were like, Bryce doesn't want to take a rehab. So they wanted an arm from here, and we think that this, like, you're a good arm to go do it. I was like, I got to talk to my agent. I have no idea. Never heard of anything like this happening midseason before. Call my agent. He's like, talking me through all these things, and he's like, I think it could be he's like, do you feel good? I was like, yeah, I feel great. He's like, I think we should go do it. And so I was like, all right, let's do it. So we went. And yeah, it was literally me and Bryce on the field, on the big league mound and in the stadium, and a net behind Hector Rabago, our bullpen catcher.
Yeah.
And it was just me and him, finger signs, T-shirt, pants. I did have baseball pants on. But yeah, and it was like, I did treat it like it was my World Series. Because at that time, I was like, my numbers in AAA, they are what they are.
Yeah.
Small sample size, but still, they are what they are. And like, this is my chance for them to get their eyes on me. I wasn't in camp with them. So like they're all going off of reports and stuff and video. This is my chance to like make first impression, real first impression. And I was like, what better guy,
Right.
What better guy? Like, shoot, let's just see where it goes. And I kind of dominated him. Sorry, Bryce.
Well, he even said after the fact, like, he went back to him and like, why are we have this guy? Like, why is
it's a good story.
Yeah.
And I appreciate Bryce for that opportunity. But yeah, I did. And
Because like all the while you're contemplating maybe going to Japan. Is that right? Is
yeah.
this
It's tough to keep opting out of team
Yeah.
deals and like re-signing and doing it over and over and over, and the money is just better.
Yeah.
In that it was in that scenario. So it was like, listen, I got 4 kids, a wife, a house, a mortgage, all these things. Like, it's just normal life stuff. And it's like, you got to do what you got to do. Like, did I want to go? No, I didn't want to go. I would rather play in the big leagues here. But, at that time, it's like, I have to provide for my family. So you got to do what you got to do.
Do you want to read this is great. So he wants to throw this at you. This is awesome.
I apologize in advance
That's
for this. So we're talking on May 7th. You're in the middle of a pretty good run here. We're talking about like, can Jeff Hoffman and Matt Strom keep this up, right? That's the conversation, a little context for you. And I was giving you some credit, and I said, with Jeff Hoffman, the best way I can describe him is when you see him take the mound, he looks like, and by the way, seemed like a very nice guy.
Yeah.
And I mean this in all sincerity, and I apologize in advance for the vulgarity, but he looks like a guy who wants to rip your fucking head off when he's on the mound. He doesn't seem scared of anything. So I wanted to say, did I get this right? But I also read a story that you're Navy SEAL breathing to slow yourself down. Like, which one is it, man? Because I see a guy that wants to kill someone on the mound, but apparently you're as calm as can be. So what am I missing here?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just like, I have a good poker face. I guess. I don't know. It's not,
are you
I am definitely amped. I try my hardest to be slow heartbeat. But playing in the big leagues in front of crowds like that, it's like next to impossible to not have some, fuck you behind it. Sorry.
No,
so it's just, it's just like one of those things, like you see how much passion like is involved in like from every level that's involved in our operation here. And it's like, how can you not be fired up about that? Yeah, it's just, I'm getting the goosebumps just thinking about it.
Well, and it brings up a point. Like, we've talked about this on the show too. You have it stitched on your glove.
Yeah.
The 3 letters.
Yeah.
FAH.
Yeah. I changed it to PHAH now.
Which stands for?
Fuck all hitters.
Fuck all hitters.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know we're running out of time. I just want to get a couple of fun questions in with you, Jeff.
Yeah, for sure.
And I asked this about the facility, the space, not the people that are in it. What's the best bullpen around the majors? Don't include Citizens Bank, but somewhere else. Like, what's the
best setup?
The best setup in the majors. Yeah.
I would have to say probably Toronto's now.
Really?
Yeah, Toronto. Well, it's brand new and the double deck layers to it. That's really cool. A lot of space for us to get what we need. Stretching and activation and stuff. Getting ready to get in the game. I think probably space and like all that all combined, it's probably Toronto.
And who's the funniest guy out in the bullpen? Like, when you guys are just sitting out there during a game, like, who's the one that's cracking the most jokes or making everybody laugh the most, and why?
Oh man, it's a good one. I try to keep it pretty light.
say
I think probably Alvy.
Really?
Alvarado.
Yeah.
A little bit of a language barrier at times, but he is a very, very funny human. Very, very funny. And it's every single day. He brings the same. I mean, he's the same guy every single day.
Yeah. I mean,
you know exactly what you're getting.
You guys, you all seem that way in the clubhouse, which is great. Yeah. Off the field, what are some hobbies of yours? And the final question will be, what are you watching? Like, what's a show
TV shows?
that you're watching right now people should get into?
So my off-season hobbies are, well, now it's a lot of kids. It used to be a lot of golf.
You have 4?
Yeah, 4 kids.
I have 2. And
yeah, 2 boys, 2 girls. Yeah. No, but so golf and video games for me. Call of Duty. I like the PGA games.
Well, who's the best Call of Duty player on the team? I know a few guys say they play.
On our team?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Probably Dylan Covey.
Really?
Yeah, he's pretty good. Pretty good.
Something to talk about.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then what was the second part of the question?
The TV. What do you watch?
TV show. So my favorite show of all time is Game of Thrones. Most recently, we've been on. I keep throwing this one at people, but Defending Jacob on Apple TV.
Yes.
Really,
it's a good show.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, me and my wife got lost in that one for a little bit. I hope the second season's coming out.
Yeah,
soon
it
or
is.
something.
Might have to do that one. I haven't really gotten to the Apple TV.
It's a good one. Chris Evans, Captain America.
I did Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso was great.
I never canceled it. And now I'm like, well, what do I have?
Yeah, Ted Lasso was great.
There's some other good ones on there too, but
that's the occasional Phillies game on Friday night. So.
The occasional Apple games. Yeah.
Exactly. We got to listen to the home broadcast feed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Well, listen, Jeff, we really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Best of luck to you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, and that was Phillies reliever Jeff Hoffman, who, by the way, is having a hell of a season.
He is.
Hell of a season.
Yeah, him, Strom. I mean, I know Kirkering. I mean, I know he gave up a run on Friday night, and Kirkering had one on Saturday that weren't great outings. But on the whole, those 3 plus Alvarado, the back end, has been really, really good for the Phillies this year. So that's a strong 4.
Yeah, I mean, from a personal standpoint, I would tell you he's obviously had some highs and lows throughout his career, and he is in the midst of a high right now. And for a guy whose future looked uncertain at times here in recent years, even as recently as May of 2023, this is a guy that he keeps this up, man. He's going to be in line for a nice little payday there, huh?
Yeah. I mean, at least what Strom got, if not a little bit more, I would think.
Yeah. Now, I will say, too, we're sitting across from the guy. I have a sense of what he's going to be cool with and what he's not. And so, like I said to you before the interview, before he came in, I'm like, can we go back and read him what I said about him on May 7th? Like, do you think I could just kind of transcribe this real quick and read it off to him and see how he responds to it? And I knew pretty quickly into the interview he'd be cool with it. So well, I appreciated that, because he might have been looking at me like, this guy's nuts. What is he right now?
Then we got to talk. I love the fact, and I didn't even notice that he changed the stitching on his glove from that F to a PH. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can work in a couple casual fucks in there, it's a nice day at the office.
Yeah, that's right. Good day.
All right. Look, we have a very limited time here. To be transparent, we're doing this with a little bit of a time crunch. So let's get to one last thing. And
one last thing. And we have to talk about it, Bob. David Fletcher, and ESPN's continued great work into the gambling in baseball. That started with the Shohei Ohtani and his translator. Now his best friend from the Angels has been caught up in this as well. Major League Baseball has opened up an investigation into David Fletcher. What does this tell you?
Well, I always know that when my close friends and close coworkers, they all do something, I never know anything about it. They tend to leave me out in the cold. So, look, man, all I'll say is that ESPN is continuing to knock on the door of this story, and they're going to continue to find out things, and I don't know what they're going to find out, and I'm certainly not saying that Shohei Ohtani knew about this, but I will say, it feels like a story that's kind of yet not fully written, and That's all I'm going to say right now. Go ahead, give your take, and then we'll shut it down.
I think so too. I think that there is so much more to this that's going to come out over time. I think this is going to ultimately be one of the great stories of our era for Major League Baseball, for sports in general. And I think that this is just, it's drip, 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 and it's going to continue to be that.
Yeah.
And so I honestly think that's what it's going to become. I'm not certain. I'm not saying that that's going to drag Shohei Ohtani into it, but I guarantee you there's going to be more names that come out that are going to be involved with this gambling operation, and maybe even more.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it, man. All right, well, listen, for Anthony Sanfilippo, I'm Bob Wankel. Thanks for checking out Crossed Up. We will be back later this week, and we'll talk to you then.